Oh man. Alright. It feels very, very good to be back. Thank you for your patience. My class is done. Um, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I am glad that it is over with. I did enjoy it though, but it was a lot of work. So now that that is done, I just have work. My schedule is pretty set, so I'll be streaming a lot more. Oh my gosh, my controller. It it always bears left. Like I don't sometimes I won't touch it and it'll just keep going left. But anyway, um losing your train of thought. It's been a while. Okay, so I'll probably have a more consistent streaming schedule now. I'll actually like have days from just like streaming something like an actual game, not just like Overwatch League stuff or just Overwatch. I still do not have my equipment back, so that's why I'm still chilling like this. This is the only way I can record as of right now, streaming it through PlayStation. So that is a little unfortunate, but I can still accomplish everything I want to here at least. So we're going to be talking about Overwatch League playoff time. It's finally here. The moment we've all been waiting for. Personally, I think the break between the end of Stage 4 and the playoffs is a little too much. I think that in the future they might want to cut that down. I feel a little disconnected, you know, like towards the end of Stage 4 I was like, oh man, what's going to happen? I'm super excited. And then it ended. It's like, okay, we got the playoffs set. And it's like 3 weeks before they start. It's just like, oh man, you know? So, but anyway, like I explained, like the format and a bunch of other stuff in the video that I did, I believe that was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago even. But I explained like the format, how each matchup will work. So I'm not going to go into any of like that today. I'm just going to go into how I think these first two are going to go. And I'm trying to think. I don't know what you guys would rather me do. If anyone is in chat right now, say what you would prefer. If you want me to just talk about what I think is going to happen in this match today, because remember they're playing multiple matches. It's going to be best to 3. So first to get 2 match wins will win the series. So on Wednesday, Philly will play Boston and Spitfire will play Gladiators, but then they'll both play again on Friday. First, I'm going to be focusing on the Philly Fusion and Boston Uprising matchup. So, I guess let me know if you want me to. I'll start by just doing this one. I'll just do this one match on Wednesday. I won't say how I think the overall series is going to go, if that makes sense. And then, if you, like for the comments of the video or whatever, if you want to put what you prefer, if you want me to like next time, like on Friday, just say. Well, both the matches would be that day anyway. If it is necessary, like if Fusion wins the first one and Boston wins the second one, then obviously the third one would be necessary. So let me know if like for the future for the semifinals and then finals, if you want me to just do the whole thing, like who I think will win the entire series before, or if you want me to do it like match by match. For today, I'm gonna do just this match. So on July 11th. 7 p.m. Central Time, Philly Fusion, Boston Uprising, they're going to play each other. Hopefully I'll be getting some friends together to watch these. It's always a lot of fun when you watch them with people. So if you have any friends that also watch Overwatch League, I would encourage you to do so. So, Philly Fusion, Boston Uprising, new patch. Remember, we're going to be dealing with new Hanzo, new Mei, a couple other little minor changes. So, how will that change this matchup? Do I think that Fusion would have won beforehand and now Boston would win, or vice versa? Or what, if this doesn't change anything? Well, first off, we're going to do what we usually do. We're going to talk about the maps. So, the maps are set for this first match. Again, there's 5 of them, just like the stage playoff format. So, starting off, they're going to be playing on Dorado. Then they go to Oasis. Then map 3 is Eichenwald. And then if, say, Boston wins the first 3, then they win the match. They don't play games 4 or 5. Remember, it's best out of 5. You don't have to play all 5. So, and if one team wins 3-1, same thing. So, if it does go to a 4th, that would be Volskaya Industries. And then the 5th one would be Junkertown if necessary. So, based on strength of team, it's really funny that this was the first matchup, because in my eyes, Boston has probably, even though their records have varied a lot, they've been like a steady team. Like, with each stage, in stage 1 they perform well, they perform better than expectations. In stage 2, they perform poorly, with Gamsu, their main tank, out, and then with him back in, they played well. They played extremely well all stage 3. Then in stage 4, they played poorly. They did win their last 4 matches, but they played against weaker teams. I don't think they necessarily played at like a way higher level than they did earlier, but they're much of a more consistent team. Once like they have what they're trying to run down, you're kind of gonna get the same thing. They're, like I said, one of the most consistent teams in my eyes in the Overwatch League. Obviously not stage to stage, but on like a day-to-day within the stage. So the other thing about Boston, which gives them a disadvantage here, is they've been slow to adapt. They're slow to pick up new meta, and they're slow to really practice it and get good at it. So what I mean by that is a lot of times they've started our stages out poorly. Stage 3 is the one exception because they won all 10 of their matches, but still they had a lot of close 3-2s that they very could have easily lost there before they really picked up their head of steam. In stage 4, obviously they lost their first 6. They were very slow to react and master the new Brigida meta. And even in like stage 2, they suffered some losses early on. Part of that was because they were missing Gamsu, one of their most important players, but that's besides the point. They were just slow to adapt in general off of that Mercy meta. Now it's kind of back to Mercy, but Hanzo being a lot stronger, people love Hanzo. He's super, super, super used last season. He's very useful, very... I don't want to say easy to use because that has like a bad connotation with it, like no skill. But he is easy to do well with if you know what you're doing, because storm arrows can be very powerful, especially in like 1v1 fights with other DPS heroes. So Hanzo, I think, will definitely have an impact. We'll definitely see some... I can't see teams not using him. I can't see it. He's too useful. He has the one-shot capability like Widow does when you can hit like your longer range shots, which obviously requires a lot of skill. It's Overwatch League, so the players have a ton of skill. So that's going to be very important. Plus, you have more like defense of yourself at close range than Widow, because he can now jump like from wall to wall. He can obviously climb his wall, and it's not on a cooldown like Grapple is. And he has his storm arrows. Like I said, he can duel it out at close range or mid range with the storm arrows. So that's going to be very important. I think he'll be honestly a little bit better than Widow in this meta. And Widow was very important last stage. She was picked like almost every freaking game. So it's going to be very interesting. I think we'll see a lot more double snipers. Hopefully we do get to see other DPS heroes still, because there's so many of them and a lot of them are so cool. So I have a feeling that Hanzo is going to be important though. And for the Fusion, I feel like EQO will probably be able to step up and have a very good Hanzo. And then for Boston, because Striker was taking over main Widow duties, I feel like Mistakes will probably be the one that was practicing a bunch of Hanzo. So we're going to have to see which one of them can pick it up better. I mean, if EQO can outperform Mistakes, then that gives Philly a huge advantage. And EQO, I'd say, is definitely better than Mistakes, like for the first 4 stages. But if Mistakes comes out as a Hanzo god and EQO kind of struggles a bit, and Hanzo is important, like I think he will be, then Philly could be in a bit of trouble. So this match is extremely hard to predict. If you had to ask me, all right, who's just playing better Overwatch going into it, I would definitely say Philly Fusion. They finished stage 4 out pretty strong, but they're still really, really inconsistent. They are the most inconsistent team in the entire league, no doubt. They were runners-up in stage 2. They missed stage playoffs after that. In stage one, they finished 6-4, but they were -4 in map differential because they got 4-0'd like 3 times. So they're inconsistent day to day. That has been their biggest flaw of the whole season. They've been switching around their tank line a bit. So there's a lot of question marks with Fusion. Their ceiling is, I don't think anyone except maybe the most diehard of Boston fans would try to argue with you that Philly's upside or that Boston's upside is higher than Philly's. I think Philly has more skill, but Boston is more consistent, and this map pool is great for Boston. If they can survive like one of the first couple maps, I mean, you get Volskaya in map 4. Eichenwald is definitely a good one that they like as well. Junkertown. So I think Philly really needs to jump out and get off to a good start. Because, like I said, if Philly gets to Volskaya and like Boston's winning, it's over. If they get there and it's 2-1, I think that we're probably going to a game 5. This one will probably go down to 5, but in the end, in this matchup, it could go either way. On the Overwatch League website, they did like a preview of it. Like showing the head-to-heads from before. They've tied 2-2 in their matches. Boston won in stages 1 and 3. Philly won in stages 2 and 4. So then they talked about like who has advantages, and then they made their picks. And I'm going to count it up real quick. But 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them picked the Fusion, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them picked Boston. So it's 4-4. Of the 8 like analysts, experts that they asked. So obviously this match could go either way. I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, I like Philly here, but Boston, it's a better map pool for them. So will that give them the advantage? Who's going to adapt to the meta a bit more? Philly's a bit more flexible overall, I think. That will give them a slight edge. But I mean, depending how Striker comes out, then that could really swing it in their favor. But in the end, I have to come down to one thing, and I was just thinking about it. I was like, all right, clear your mind. What comes to your mind first when you think about this matchup? And it was one word. It was a name, Carpe. I think Carpe is going to do enough to get Philly the win here. I'm going to say probably in 5. Like I said, I don't see any way Philly wins Volskaya. That's Boston's home turf. I think Philly will probably get off to a 2-1 lead, and then Boston will tie it up. And then Philly will knock them out of the ring with a map 5 Junkertown win. I think it'll be close though. Could Boston win? Yeah, especially if Striker pops off. I mean, he was some people's MVP through pretty much at the end of stage 3. I think that's fallen off a bit. But yeah, if he can perform like super well and kind of offset the superstar effect that Carpe has, then they got a real shot to win this baby. So we shall see. I'm going to go with the Fusion in this first match 3-2, but remember that does not mean the series is over. That just means Philly's up 1-0, and then they will play match 2 on Friday, and then if Boston wins that one, or if Boston would win that one after Philly won, then, or vice versa, then they would go to a game 5, which would be, I believe, directly following that one. Yes, it would be directly following that matchup. So, we'll see how that turns out, but I'm going to say that Philly gets off to the good start, and they get the first match win because of their little bit more flexibility, a little bit more talent, and because of the man Carpe. So, the other matchup, very interesting one. I mean, all of these playoff matchups will be. It's the London Spitfire against the LA Gladiators. So, a lot of history between these two teams. Gladiators surprised the Spitfire in the preseason. Of course, that didn't mean too much. But I remember that was a point when I watched that with like a couple of friends were visiting up at school, and we watched that, and as a Gladiator fan, I was like excited. I was like, oh man, I wasn't expecting too much of the Gladiators coming into the season. I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I thought they might be like decently close, but I thought they'd be more in the 8-9 slot where they were 8th after the first stage, and then even going into the 4th stage they were 8th, but they did end up in 4th, and a lot of that has to do with Fissure, who of course was traded to the Gladiators by the Spitfire because they already had Gesture as their main tank. They wanted to give Fissure an opportunity to play a lot somewhere else, and play he has. I think it's, I wouldn't say backfired, because I think that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to give him an opportunity to shine, but a lot of people are now questioning, well, should they have kept him? Should he have been their starter this whole time? And who knows? I guess this matchup will kind of determine that as well. So these teams, they've played 3 times in the actual season. The Gladiators won all 3 times. So Spitfire has yet to beat Gladiators in the Overwatch League. So right away you think, okay, Gladiators big advantage. Well, yeah, I would give them an advantage, but I don't think this one is going to be a blowout by any means. Again, these teams will play at 9 on Wednesday, which I'll have to stay up a little later. Won't get as much sleep before work Thursday, but it will totally be worth it. So the maps that they're playing on are not the same, actually. They vary matchup to matchup. The format is still the same, though, in the best of 5 matchup, and there's starting with Escort, going to Control, then Hybrid, then 2CP, and then another Escort. So, like I said before, this is a bad matchup for the Gladiators, or not a bad matchup, but a bad format for the Gladiators, because Escort is their weakest game type, and they have to play it twice. So that's gonna make life easier for the Spitfire already. Spitfire will be attacking first because they're the away team. So Gladiators are, I'd say they definitely used to be. I'd say they still are a bit stronger defensively as a team for the most part. And then Spitfire are not as good offensively. They're better defensively as well. So LA could really set the tone with some good holds. If Spitfire are able to kind of run rampant for a while, then I'd say Gladiators could be in some trouble. So, like I said, LA, one of the worst teams at escorts in the Overwatch League. But if I had to pick right now, I would say that the Gladiators are the best control team in the world. They didn't perform that well on Oasis earlier in the season, but especially the last couple stages on like Nepal, on Lijiang, on Oasis, they just don't lose on them. Their coordination is so good in those. They're really good at like the brawl out fights, and they just always take those. So I think that game 1 really sets the tone on Junkertown. I think it's a kind of a must-win for London because they're playing on Junkertown, then Lijiang Tower, then King's Row, then Hanamura, and then, if necessary, they're wrapping it up on Dorado. So I think if Gladiators take Junkertown, it's all but over. Maps like Lijiang and King's Row are great for LA. If they do, I could also see a tie on Hanamura happening. So we could potentially be going to a map 6. But I won't go super in depth about like the team's winning percentages on these maps. Like I said, there's 2 knocks against the Gladiators that I have going in. Number 1 is, like I mentioned before, the format. Having to play 2 escorts hurts them. I can't emphasize that enough. It really hurts them. And number 2, and I'm not making excuses for the team, like it'll still be their fault if they lose, and they credit to the other team. But this format does not make it easier for them. The previous format, where it's only 1 escort, and then if you go to a 5th, it's another control, worked way better for them because, like I said, they're such a good control team. But anyway, the second thing that works against them, they haven't really had Hanzo play much. Gladiators, I think they were last. They were either last or second to last in the league in Hanzo usage in Stage 4. So with Hanzo being, I think, a lot more important, somebody had to be grinding, and I'm sure the coaches did their due diligence and they've had somebody practicing. I'm sure it's probably Hydration who's been practicing Hanzo the most. Then they'll continue to have Surefour on the Widowmaker. What I would honestly like to see is maybe on a map or 2 sub in Asher, He hasn't played in a long time. Have him playing Widowmaker for like, hopefully they've had him playing that for like past month or like weeks or whatever it was, and really honing in because he's a good Widowmaker. He just hasn't played her in a while. So if he's been in the back, like honing his skills a lot, then you can swap it in and out. And because Asher has a different style than Surefour, you can still run those Widow comps, but you can throw the other team off. This probably won't happen. This is probably just wishful thinking on my part, but I feel like that would be a really good idea for them. And then for the Spitfire, they're going to have to rely on their DPS duo and gesture as well. London, they just never put it together. I kept waiting every stage after stage 1. They had their rough stage in number 2. 3, it wasn't that much better. 4 was probably their best stage since stage 1. Stage 1, they were the champs, so that was obviously their best stage. But they never really like fully got it together, and just putting aside the individual talent because Spitfire has so much of it, I just think that the Gladiators are more of a team. They've shown it. They were 9-1 last stage. They very narrowly lost in the stage playoffs to the LA Valiant, who have been playing like the best team of late, even though I don't think they're the best team. I think they're second best. They had a extremely close match with them. So Gladiators have to be considered up there. I have them right now as the third best team, just play-wise. So with the map pool is pretty solid for them. If Spitfire, the longer Spitfire takes this matchup, the more dangerous it gets for LA. But I am going to go with the Gladiators to win this opening match, because even if they lose Junkertown, you take care of business on Lijiang and Kings Row, and then you go to Hanamura, and I could very well see that one being like a 2-2 draw. And in that case, even for the Gladiators, that's great, because even if you do end up losing Dorado, which they've performed pretty well on, it's one of their best escort maps, even if you manage to lose on that, you get to go to a control, which I believe is, the tiebreaker is Nepal again, which is probably the Gladiators' best map in the entire game. So I think they're in really good shape with the map pool and with the way that they're playing. As long as somebody, Hydration, Silk Thread, I don't care who it is, if somebody can come in and prove that they can effectively play the Hanzo, so that gives them another weapon to use, I think that they're going to be in good shape to take this this first match and set themselves up to advance to the semifinals. And then the second matches, I won't talk about them, but for Philly and Uprising, it will be on the Friday, 2 days later. So, like I said, I believe they start at 5, and then they'll play their match, and then if it's 1-1, they will play the tiebreaker right after that. And the exact same thing goes for Gladiators and Spitfire, except they will be starting at 5 on Saturday. So these matchups are great. I'm a fan of both of them. I think that seeing the Spitfire Gladiator one more time, Fisher versus his old team, all that good stuff, that's great. And seeing Boston versus Philly, once again, who have been two teams that have battled back and forth all season. They're very different, but have both been very effective in each of their own ways, I think is awesome. So I can't wait. Bring on Wednesday. Cannot come soon enough. Good luck to your teams if they're playing, and have a great couple days, and then I will see you for predicting the second and or third match on Thursday.